Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hey, welcome to be my guest. This is Jan Lewis. Today we have from Milford Regional Medical Center. This is going to be a real treat. We have three ladies who are going to talk about the physical therapy aspect over there and a lot of things that they have to offer. You don't have to go to Worcester anymore or any too far out. It's right here near our home. I'm going to introduce everybody to you. To my left, we have Teresa Ryan, and you are a physical therapist supervisor at Northbridge,
Yes,
right?
yes, I am.
And next to her we have Liz Davis, occupational therapist, right, Liz? And Terry Barlow, last but not least. She is a speech therapist over there. Now, I think we got pretty lucky to have all three of these ladies with us today. Carol, can you give us, Teresa, can you give us a brief overrun of the where it's located and what's offered there?
Sure. So we just moved into our new location. It's in the new building next to Osterman, the Osterman Park over there. We're in the same building as the Milford Physician Group, Lab and X-ray, and we're on the end. We're about, in that particular building, we're about 6,500 or so more plus square feet. And it's pretty easy access between, Upton, Hopedale, Mendon, Uxbridge, Northbridge. We have a lot of people come from Sutton and even some Grafton.
Yeah, it's in a great location. In Whitensville, where you go down past Osterman's, you can't miss this. I mean, it's on the left as you're coming into Whitensville.
Right.
So it's got urgent care. I've been to your urgent care. They've got that, regular physicians, primary care.
Right.
And then you're over around?
We're just on, so if you're looking at the building, the physicians group is on the left, urgent care and lab and x-ray are in the middle, and we're right on the end on the right. There's a teal roof.
Okay, it's a little...
Yeah, it says right on it, Milford Regional Rehab and Sports Medicine.
How long have you been the supervisor?
I've been the supervisor for 8 years, and I've been with Milford for 16.
You were sharing with me that you really enjoy what you do.
I love what I do.
You can see that you really like
I'm very passionate about my field and about rehab in general, and the at Milford, the interdisciplinary, we work very well together.
Yeah, well.
And we have a lot of very talented people in both PT, OT, and speech that just bring a lot to the table, and it just keeps you and just taking care of people is just...
Now, Liz, you're an occupational therapist. Explain to people what that is.
Well, that's an interesting question. All my professional life has been trying to help people understand what an occupational therapist does, as opposed to what a physical therapist does. And I like to think of it as we're a little bit like a chameleon. So what color is a chameleon? Interesting question. So what does an occupational therapist do? A friend of mine once said to me, I know exactly what an occupational therapist does. My child had occupational therapy because they were delayed. She came to my house, she worked with them to get their fine motor together, to get their visual perception together. She got them ready for school. That's what an occupational therapist does. I said, great, we have 2 occupational therapists in the Northbridge Clinic.
We do, we have
that work with pediatrics. Another friend said, no, that can't be right. My mother had a stroke. She was in Milford, and the occupational therapist helped her get in and out the bath. She helped her get her hand function better. She helped her get back to work. That's what an occupational therapist does. And I said, yes, we have occupational therapists that work in the hospital. And they help people get to rehab. They help people get better. That's what an occupational therapist does.
Yeah.
Then another friend of mine said, no, that's not right. I have a patient who was in a car accident. He cut all the tendons in his hand. And a hand therapist worked with them to make these special splints, get his hand better, even get him back to work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's right. We have 3 certified hand therapists, one in Milford, one in Northbridge, and one in Franklin. We get patients back to work. We even have a specialized work functional conditioning program in Franklin. So yes, that's what an occupational therapist does.
Is that big building off 140?
It
Yeah.
is next to BJ's.
I've been there to I think it was a free lecture put on by Milford
Yes.
on vertigo.
Yes.
That's right.
They did
Yes.
a great job.
They did.
Then another friend said, but wait a minute, my best friend had breast cancer. And she couldn't get her arm in the right position for radiation. An occupational therapist worked with her for that. Then she had lymphedema. An occupational therapist helped her get better. So that's what an occupational therapist does. And I'm saying, that's right. The occupational therapist worked with the breast cancer, with the cancer center we have right here in Milford.
Yeah.
You don't need to go to Boston anymore.
Yeah.
So you see, as an occupational therapist, we're chameleons. We take the scientific knowledge, the medical knowledge, the knowledge of human function that we gained in college, we put it all together, and we work to get patients back to their best functional ability to do the best job that they need to do, whether it's a child going to school,
Yeah.
a mom at home with her kids, a man going to work, or even a retired grandma who's traveling back and forth
Yeah.
to see their kids in whichever state they
Well,
work.
yeah, she's got to hold on to the steering wheel, right?
So an occupational therapist can be a little bit of chameleon depending on which setting
Right.
and what kind of person that you're working with.
Liz, you have a beautiful accent. Where are you from?
Makes me more of a chameleon because I was born in Scotland, raised in South Africa, and I've been here for over 30 years.
So you were born in Scotland. What town in Scotland?
Glasgow.
Glasgow. You know the Isle of Lewis?
I only lived there as a young kid,
All right.
so
There's a lot of Scots on my dad's side. Lewis the Holy. Now, we have, thank you, Liz, so much. We're going to have to talk more about this. Now, we have Taryn Barlow, and see, she is a speech therapist. Taryn, what does a speech therapist do?
It piggybacks off of some of the very same things my coworkers do. It kind of brings it all together. Speech language pathology is often misunderstood as well. People say, my speech is fine.
Yeah.
I don't need you. And I say, well, if we were what we did, we'd be this super long name. Speech, language, cognition, swallowing, feeding, voice, therapist. And who can say all that anyway?
Coughing and then clearing your throat, too. I found that out.
Yes.
I went to a speech therapist, and I thought, what am I doing here? She said, no, I'm going to show you how to not keep doing that,
Yeah.
because you don't need to.
Exactly.
She had to show me that. And I had a cough. And how long have you been doing this, Taryn?
I have worked with Milford Regional for going to be going my 6th year, but I've been out in the field for 8. But I've been a speech pathologist at heart since I was in 8th grade. It's a big joke. I'm a speech nerd. I fell in love with the profession because it's the essence of who people are. If you can't communicate, people lose a lot of purpose, function, the ability to socially interact with people. And it can really be a very challenging experience. Children, parents, adults, your great-grandma. Communication is absolutely necessary to function at work, at school, in the community. And so it's
If you're a businessman or a
everywhere.
woman, you got to get up and give a presentation, right? You got to be able to. Is a lot of it, the speech part, is a lot of it because they don't pronunciate correctly?
So that's probably the most understood branch of speech pathology. Speech pathology, when people think of it, they think of articulation. And then most people also think of children. But that articulation, if I just take that little field, that's articulation as a child in development and maybe some developmental milestones. That is an adult recovering from stroke that has some weaknesses within their mouth. That is the business person in a meeting that has some voice challenges and the way in which their voice and speech resonates through the chamber of speech. You have to remember,
Right.
this system from here to here is shared between speaking, swallowing, breathing, so there's a lot of overlap in anything that comes in this range of our world.
That's your world. To get the word out more about what everybody here does. When I saw this, we can't figure out where I saw it. Was it in the Uxbridge paper or Blackstone Bellier Press? But it's absolutely wonderful ad for Milford Regional. The best choice for rehabilitation services. Sports medicine, occupational therapy, that's our friend Liz. Physical therapy in adults for children, speech language therapy for adults and children, Taryn. Now, before you became supervisor, what did you specialize in one of them?
I was more of my field. I've done a lot of things in my field before coming to Milford. But at Milford, I did specialize in orthopedics and sports medicine, and then I started to really enjoy some of the vestibular components of people, and so I took courses in vestibular and whatnot. But orthopedics and sports medicine was definitely my area of strengths and enjoyment. I had children that played sports, so I took a big liking to that, and so those were my areas.
There's one branch that I don't see a whole lot of. I know I had to go to UMass. Vestibular, gosh, because I'd had a problem on one side, and it was vestibular vertigo, right?
Yeah.
And they teach you the Epley maneuver. God, I hate that. You have boom, way there to go, and you're like, whoa. Some people are prone to it. I had radiation on one side. We'll never understand if it maybe weakened the inner.
Could have scarred some things.
Yeah, so that's I don't find that many. Do you have one at Milford, a vestibular? You do?
Yeah, we have 3 in the Northbridge Clinic that treat vestibular. There's several in the Milford Clinic. And in the Franklin Clinic, there's 3 as well that treat the vestibular.
I didn't know this.
And vestibular is very broad. Like, so not everybody gets the Epleys, because for us, we do an evaluation and figure out if the Epleys is due to one type of vestibular dysfunction, but there's many types of vestibular dysfunction, so the therapist needs to kind of weed through that and figure out which dysfunction it is and which techniques or protocols would fit best for you.
I know for years they thought it was the crystal, the loose crystal.
Well, that can happen.
But it wasn't. They
No.
found out it wasn't that.
Yeah, lots of times people come to us thinking that it's the crystals because that's what they've heard, they've read about it online, and then when we do an evaluation, that's really not quite where they fit in, and so then we adjust the program.
Liz and Taryn, when people come to you, what do you do with somebody who, I noticed in physical therapy, when I've been through it for years, some people, I love it. I don't know what it is. I like, because I know if I chip in, I'll get better.
It's a
But
team.
what do you do with the person who just, they're not doing their exercises at home? What do you think of that, Liz? Have you run into that?
Well, that's a part of our job as a therapist, is you have to get to know your patient and you have to get to understand what is important to them. What is it that they need to get back to? That's one of the important parts of an occupational therapist, is get people back to what's important to them.
Yeah.
When you understand what's important to them and what's stopping them, you have to be able to put their therapy into language that means something to them. If I tell them to move their wrist 5 times, well, they'll forget. But if I help them understand why, what this is doing, why it's important to them to be able to do this, to get back to lift that grandchild again, to get back to their high level functioning executive position, that this simple thing that I'm asking them to do will make that possible, then people are more motivated. It's my job as a therapist to understand them and help them become motivated.
You almost have to be a clinical social worker in a way, all of you, to understand the person you work with is not like the one who just went out the door.
Exactly.
They're all very different.
Tara, do you run into this too with speech? I had a little boy I took care of many, many years ago. I was his nanny. He was 4 years old, 5. We had to take him for speech. I don't think he was that crazy about it, but he improved.
Yeah.
He did well.
It is really about finding the person's passion and functionally describing why you're doing something. This isn't a secret. Therapy isn't a secret. There's no man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
It's, this is what we're doing, here's why we're doing it. What do you functionally want to gain from this? On our intake form, it very clearly asks, what's your goal? Why are you here? It's patient-specific, driven to want to help people. I work with this group of coworkers that's their passion.
Yeah.
We have our own little specialties, but everybody also learns something about someone, and we share it with each other.
I
We're
can tell
sharing
all
a
3
patient.
of you that you're very into what you do. Very, very into what you do. How can people get a hold of you? They have some questions.
So in the in the Northbridge Clinic, you can access all 3 disciplines, PT, OT, and speech, by calling 508-234-8792. You do need a doctor's referral or theprescription so that your insurance will cover it. And you call and we get you in with the appropriate therapist.
Sure.
There's and I'm sure, and I'll let them give you the information for Milford Clinic, but we're really good, and I know Milford tries and Franklin does as well, to try and match the therapist to the patient. I mean, we can't always do that, but, certain personalities, certain diagnoses that they do better than the other. For our pediatric program, if a parent calls in, we have one of the pediatric therapists call the parent to screen them to make sure that we can offer them the services that they need, and if we can't, then we refer them to somewhere else.
I love what you mentioned about working with the personality of the person you're with, because not everybody's going to. I was very lucky. I think what I found the best was when someone remembered, how are you today? And then maybe when there was one thing going on in my life or family, like, well, how's your son doing? That meant a lot. Although it didn't seem like a lot, but it meant a lot.
Well,
it meant that
connection.
she was listening. Listening.
One of the things I've always told my therapist, and I take myself, and I say this at staff meetings, is I never want a patient to leave this clinic feeling like you weren't listened to. That we cared about what they said, that we genuinely took an interest in what they said, and that we're invested in their care, and that way we get them invested in their care,
Exactly. We are talking with Teresa Ryan, and she is the supervisor for physical therapy over in the Whitensville branch. We have Liz Davis, occupational therapist. Liz, are you in Whitensville or over in Milford or Franklin?
I'm at the Milford Clinic.
You're in Milford. And then Taryn Barlow, speech therapy. Are you in Milford, Franklin, or Whitensville?
I'm in Milford. I have worked in Whitensville.
Yeah.
I also cover some inpatient as well at Milford Regional at the hospital itself. So
That's important to people know that you folks also go in, with somebody who's a
Continuity.
patient in there, right? And they call you, the doctor maybe wants you to come on in and work with that person. That's important too.
We have a very large inpatient therapy staff. So we have a staff in Northbridge, we have a staff in Milford, staff in Franklin, and then we have, as Liz was just saying, PT, OT, and speech as well, designated to the inpatient. And they're very busy. They have a good sized staff there as well.
Are you open at night for people who work during the day?
yes.
We have evening hours. There are certain therapists that work in the evening as well. Sometimes there are limited hours. People, the front desk staff will take a patient's requests and try as hard as they can to match them. When the patients have specific requests, if there's a specific specialty that's required, if it's a hand therapist or vestibular or things like that, it may be a little bit more difficult, but the clinics try very hard to make sure that we try to have different specialties available early morning, evenings, Saturdays at different clinics.
Saturdays.
At all of the branches?
All three clinics.
Yes.
Oh.
Saturday mornings.
Okay, so if you need physical therapy, maybe you can't get your child there during the week. They're there on Saturday mornings till what time?
Depends on the clinic.
Depends on the clinic.
Franklin and Northbridge are open 7:30 to 1 on Saturdays, and the Milford Clinic is open longer for
Now the Milford Clinic, as I remember it, you're on 140 and you're heading for McDonald's and Papagino's, right?
Yeah.
Right
It's
next
right
door
next
to
to
Papagino's.
Papagino's.
Yeah, it's
You
right.
got yourself some lunch after you're there.
And Franklin is the one down 140
By
near
BJ's.
Forge
The
Park.
train
right?
station.
Its address is actually 2 Forge Park. Yeah,
Near
Parkway.
the railroad?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Right after.
I got it. All right, so I've got that one. So you've got 3 different places that you can. Can the patient choose, or is it's a matter of matching them exactly? No, they can't choose.
They can
Okay.
choose.
Oh yeah.
No, they can.
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right,
Sometimes
they can say,
we'll say to the patient, we have someone at this other clinic that specializes. I really would love for them to see you because I think they have something to offer.
Yeah.
But it's patient-centric. Everything is driven towards meeting their needs, finding out things about their life. Rehab it's about rehabbing your personal life.
It's work.
There's
It's
no
work.
cookie cutter
No
in
cookie
this.
cutter.
I have a friend who just had some very serious neck surgery. Something had been pinching or something, and he couldn't feel himself going down. Oh, he'll have to have rehab. They're going to send him, I believe, to Beaumont. Do you girls, does anybody go over there to help at Beaumont?
They have their own staff.
They
there.
have, okay. All
Yeah,
right.
they have their own staff.
They have their own stuff.
The one good thing about the Milford Hospital is it allows patients to stay very local. So there's a very good transition between patients who are inpatient, who may have to go to Beaumont or other rehabs within the community, and then transition from that to an outpatient setting. So there's lots of communication with the inpatient therapists, making that transition seamless. So they go from inpatient to rehab to home care even, and then from home care to us. We have home care therapists who will call us to make that transition smooth, so that our patients within the community can stay local. But we have communications with the bigger hospitals. Like the cancer center is now associated with the bigger hospitals, but our local community have access to it right here in Milford. And the therapists are all, in all 3 locations, are constantly upgrading their education, going to conferences, having in-services, etc., to make sure that we keep our training on the cutting edge, just as all the teaching hospitals are, so that people don't need to leave their local community. We bring all that expertise here, as the hospital is striving to do, to bring the best doctors. Their therapists are doing the same thing, so that all in our local community, we're keeping everything accessible to them.
This
right
is great.
Here in town.
That's wonderful. He had his surgery at UMass. He's still in there. I don't know if he's in the ICU, but he is connected. He lives in the Whitensville area, so he is going to be coming back to Beaumont. So then he'll probably, I don't know how they're going to arrange that, but I love the way they tried to keep everything pretty local.
They do, yeah. It makes it so much better for the patient.
Yeah, Taryn, what would you suggest to maybe someone in high school right now or younger who wants to go into physical therapy? Any suggestions or what colleges to apply to? I'm going to go around here, but what do you think?
For speech-language pathology, most people kind of land in it versus what I did of knowing that I wanted it. But it's 4 years of college, a master's degree, and we have to earn 30 units of education every 3 years as well. So we are constantly updating our education and staying, as you said, on the cutting edge of things.
So you go for 4 years of college of your choice, right?
Yeah.
And then where do you go to do that 30 units for your speech?
So after grad school, then there's websites, there's conferences. Sometimes we earn continuing education within the clinic when we offer it to our colleagues. And you just kind of have to stay in your interests and what you're good at and hone your skills even more. And there's constantly something being presented to you that you're going, I don't know enough about this. I need to learn.
And you're going to study.
I think what I found and what will keep me at the rehab is the coworkers continuing to, I learned this, you should check this out.
Very passionate about sharing.
We should do a little bit more education on this.
Sure.
This is my 3rd patient with X diagnosis. Have you seen this? That interdisciplinary communication, sharing from the hospital, from the ER, all the way out to outpatient.
Tara, do you see patients who have a friend who had the throat surgery where all he could do is talk with the little gadget there? Do you have to teach them how to re-speak again through that?
Yeah.
That's going to be awfully hard.
So if it is communication of either expression or comprehension, it's speech therapy. It's a bigger field than anybody.
Yeah, that's another reason I want everybody on, because each field. Now, Liz, in the occupational, as you said, that covers like a humongous field. In your opinion, what is the hardest one that patients deal with that you've seen, like in your experience, that takes the most work on it? Is there one in particular?
I don't think I can choose just one. I think every disability that I've dealt with has its trials and tribulations, and it takes determination, from a child who has a learning disability to a stroke to a head injury to I'm a certified hand therapist, people who are recovering from very complicated hand injuries, or recently I'm a certified lymphedema therapist working with cancer patients. Recovering from breast cancer. I don't think you can say that one is more difficult than the other. Each has its own challenges. I think that the most rewarding thing as a therapist is being able to have a small part to play in watching someone have an aha moment, of realizing that although it's incredibly difficult, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel where they can actually get back to doing what they did before. It may have to do it as an occupational therapist. Sometimes we have to do adaptations. That's a huge part of our job as an occupational therapist, that this is their maximum physical ability, but there are many adaptations we can do to make them function again, but function differently.
The new
And
normal.
this is now their new normal, but there is an ability to function. And watching people realize that I am still who I was. I may have to do things differently, but I am still me.
I'm still me.
And watching people get back to life with their family, in their job, that's rewarding. And it takes therapists, but it takes family
Yeah.
with those
A lot of
patients.
support.
And their
Team.
support.
Did you know, Liz, for many years that this is what you wanted to do? I'm going to ask you the same question. Did you know you wanted to go in this? Tara
I
did.
decided in high school.
You knew.
I had a teacher in school talk about many different options we could possibly go into.
Yeah.
This sounded interesting. I went to watch an occupational therapist work with very severely disabled cerebral palsy children,
Yeah.
and I decided to do that. And when I was senior in high school,
That was it. You knew.
There's something to be said about people.
People. Yes.
People.
Yeah.
And that's a lot about rehab.
Well, you're dealing intimately. I mean, gosh, somebody's got a lower back problem and they got to have a massage. I went through this. The person can't be squeamish about working that close. Did you know when you were a kid that you wanted to do this?
I did.
You
I knew when I was a small little girl that I wanted to be in healthcare. Like I was always fixing my dad's boo-boos or someone's boo-boos or taking care of
Yeah.
something. But when it's interesting because when we were in 7th grade, our English teacher had us write on a card what we thought we would be when we grew up, and I put physical therapist on there. And then he handed them back to us our senior year right before graduation.
That's it.
Yeah, I think partly was because I was exposed to my mother's best friend had a young daughter with cerebral palsy, and they needed volunteers to help do movement therapy with her throughout the day. So I was in junior high school, and I would go over, a few times a week and do that.
Yeah.
And I just knew that that's what I wanted to
I
do.
think all three ladies knew. You just knew. Liz, you felt it. And Taryn and Teresa.
Yeah.
I don't meet many people, all three, that are
And
really...
you don't meet many people that, like for me, 32 years out, I love my job.
Yeah.
Like, I love my job.
Yeah.
My husband says, you're so lucky,
Yeah.
I love being a physical
I could see going to
therapist.
my personality, all three of you. Each one of you. Oh, definitely. We've got to have to close, but one more time. Tara, anybody, how can they reach you?
So the Milford Clinic can be reached by calling 508-422-2388. We have a wonderful reception staff that will help you get to the right therapy. I also really want to mention the fact that there are 2 support groups that Milford Regional also runs. I actually run the Stroke Survivor Support Group on the 2nd Wednesday of every month. At the Milford Clinic next to Papagino's at 7:30. One of our wonderful occupational therapists also runs the, pardon my referencing, I want to make sure I get it right, the Brain Injury Support Group at the hospital in the Hill Building on the 4th floor on the 3rd Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. So again, continuity.
Yeah.
So you may be discharged from therapy, but
Yeah.
you're still needing support.
Exactly.
One of the greatest things I've ever done is facilitate a support group.
How many, let's say in one given session, about how many come for your stroke?
We started a year ago, and we have grown by at least one person every meeting, upwards of, my highest attended meeting was 22 people.
Wow! Usually I hear, well, we're kind of faltering at 4 or 2. This is fantastic. And what was the other group that you mentioned?
The Brain Injury Support
How
Group.
are they doing?
I'm not sure of the numbers.
Yeah.
She's been running that support group for, I believe, 25 years. Denise, one of our OTs, and she's
she's
fabulous.
our OT supervisor.
Passionate and a great facilitator of that group. And she helped me get the stroke support
Well,
group
we could go
started.
on for hours here.
I was just going to say we have so many different initiatives, so many
We're going to
different
have you
things.
back, all three of you. Teresa and Liz and Taryn, thanks so much and sharing all of what you know and everything. And we need to have you back, okay?
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
All right.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you next time with
Appreciate
you,
it.
my guest.
Thanks.